Sword Art Online has extremely high popularity on ASCII list. However, its mean score does not fall within the top 10%. Meanwhile, titles like End of Green Gables and Mobile Police Patlabor 2, the movie, rank within the top 10% in mean score, yet they do not fall within the top 10% in popularity. And of course, there are titles like Demon Slayer that rank highly in both mean score and popularity. In other words, popularity and rating do not always match. So why does this gap appear? We often think, if a title has a high rating, it must be a masterpiece. If a title is popular, it must be a success. But are these two things really the same? Today, using data from about 22,000 titles registered on ASCII list, we will look at the relationship between these two measures. And when we do, an unexpected structure appears. This is the actual data. The horizontal axis is popularity. The vertical axis is mean score. Each point represents one title. Looking at the whole chart, there is a general trend toward the upper right. In other words, the more popular a title is, the higher its rating tends to be. But this relationship is not as strong as you might expect. Just because many people watch a title doesn't mean it will be highly rated. So let's take a closer look at this chart. First, look at the left side. This is the region of low popularity. Here, mean scores are spread widely. Even among titles with similar popularity, some are rated very highly, while others are rated quite low. In other words, among lesser-known titles, many receive excellent ratings. Now look at the right side. In the region of high popularity, the variation in mean score becomes much smaller. In other words, the more widely a title spreads, the more its rating tends to fall within a similar range. So then, how many titles actually achieve both high popularity and high ratings? Look at the upper right area. High mean score and high popularity. These are titles that achieve both quality and reach. ASCII list contains about 22,000 titles. Among them, only about 1,000 titles fall within the top 10% in both mean score and popularity. That is only about 5%. In other words, titles that combine quality and reach are much rarer than we might expect. So let's look at this structure a little more clearly. This chart can be divided into 4 regions. Upper right, high mean score and high popularity. Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, Death Note. These are titles that spread worldwide and receive high ratings. Lower right, high popularity, but ratings are more divided. Sword Art Online, Dragon Ball GT. These titles reach many viewers, yet their evaluations are sometimes mixed. Upper left, high ratings, but limited recognition. End of Green Gables, Patlabor 2, the movie. Highly regarded titles, known mainly to dedicated audiences. And finally, the lower left. Neither high in mean score nor popularity. In fact, about 80% of all titles fall into this region. So then, do the titles in the upper right share something in common? Here, let's look from another perspective, the format of the series. First, from all the titles registered on ASCII list, we extract TV series and films OVAs. Next, we divide each title into 4 regions and count the number of works in each area. Then, for each format, we calculate the share of titles in each quadrant using the total number of works in that format as the baseline. This allows us to compare which regions TV series and films OVAs tend to appear in more often. We then take the share of TV series in each quadrant and divide it by the share of films OVAs, calculating how many times more frequently each format appears. As a result, several differences become visible. First, the upper right region, where both mean score and popularity are high. In this area, TV series appear about 4.8 times more often than films or OVAs. Next, the lower right region. Here, popularity is high, but mean score is relatively lower. In this region, TV series appear about 9.4 times more often than films or OVAs. On the other hand, in the upper left region, where mean score is high but popularity is relatively low, TV series appear only about 1.2 times as often as films or OVAs, which is only a slight difference. Finally, in the lower left region, where both mean score and popularity are low, TV series appear about 0.7 times as often as films or OVAs. In other words, they are actually less common there. Taken together, the overall pattern suggests that TV series are more likely to appear in regions with higher popularity. In addition, titles with higher mean score also tend to appear somewhat more frequently among TV series. So why might these differences occur? There are several possible reasons. First, TV series may run for a single season, or sometimes for many years. During that time, more people become aware of the title and have opportunities to watch it. In other words, the time and opportunities for a show to reach a wider audience may simply be greater. By contrast, films and OVAs often have more limited release windows or distribution opportunities. As a result, even when a title receives very high evaluations, the number of people who can actually watch it may not expand as widely as with TV series. Another factor is length. TV series typically have many episodes, allowing audiences to spend more time with the characters and the story. Over time, this can deepen viewers' understanding of the work and strengthen their emotional attachment, which may also contribute to higher evaluations. These kinds of differences may be influencing how titles are distributed across the two measures, popularity and mean score. Now, we've been looking at the structure, but there is one area that naturally catches our attention: the upper right corner. This is where titles have both high mean score and high popularity. In other words, works that achieved both quality and reach. Let's look at them in order of popularity. Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, Death Note, and after them, Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, Hunter x Hunter, One Punch Man. These are titles known all over the world. The upper right is not random. This is where many global blockbusters appear. As we have seen, mean score and popularity are not the same thing. Mean score measures how highly people who watched the title rated it. Popularity measures how widely the title reached. Quality and reach. When we look at both together, the position of a title can appear slightly different. Where would your favorite title appear on this chart? But there is one more important perspective. It is this: among the people who watched the title, how many added it to their favorites? Not mean score, not popularity. Another measure. On this channel, we call it core fan rate. In the next episode, we will use this measure to explore the quality of popularity in much greater depth. The theme of this channel is simple: measure what you love. To look at what you enjoy from one more angle, not just feeling but also numbers. If this perspective feels interesting to you, please consider subscribing. And I'll see you in the next video.